and so I played a lot of rock bands, right? But here comes punk rock, and anyway, I heard my buddy called me and he said, hey, you got to get this Blasters album, the Blasters, and so I got the album. I went and I got the album, and I went and saw the show, and it just blew my mind because it was okay, rockabilly but blues, baby, rockabilly, blues, rock and roll, high energy rock and roll, and it was a punk rock show, and it was like, I was sitting there thinking to myself, oh hell yeah, I'm all about this. So I was off to the races, you know, but they really changed my life, and it's so excellent to get to hook up with them for all these years and then to have them out here on this tour right now. Let's hear it big time for one of my favorite bands ever, the Blasters! Now, I'll tell you what about the Blasters. Their lead singer, Phil Alvin, he's the guy, okay? Now, if I could sing like that, I would, all right? And then the other players in that band, Keith Wyatt on guitar is amazing. Johnny Baz on bass is amazing. But listen, if I were to die and become reincarnated as a musician, I would want to be Bill Bateman, the drummer for the Blasters, baby. Man, he's awesome. Anyway, thanks to those guys. And then another band that changed my life, or you know, it's a guy that, you know, to me, he's really reached the pinnacle of what achievement in music can be. And you know, it's crazy. A lot of people, even if you don't like country, you got to admit these country guys, they're the best. They're the most talented, the most creative. They come up with the most concepts. You know, they're off the hook good. But this guy blows all them away. Now listen, I say that, you know, music isn't like the Olympics. It's not who can jump the highest, who can run the fastest, because it's art, it's subjective, right? But if it were the Olympics, this guy would win the decathlon every time. So anyway, he really changed my life watching him play. He's an awesome singer, songwriter, guitar player, and love him, and his whole band and crew are great. Let's hear a big time for Junior Brown. There's another guy that I'm going to talk about later that we're going to have out here, but in the meantime, a lot of you may know, some of you may not know, we have a new member in the band. He played with multiple Grammy-winning band from Texas, Brave Combo. He played with a great Western swing band called 1100 Springs, a honky-tonk Western swing band. And all this, and a guy who's a music school guy for a jazz drummer, but he can play rock, he can play anything, and it's good that he's got that style. He plays with a lot of soul, and he's a wonderful person. Y'all are going to love him. Please welcome to the band from Racine, Wisconsin via Frisco, Texas, RJ, Mr. Contreras. Joining us on this tour, and he's been joining us a lot lately. And listen, a lot of you may not know, but my style of songwriting is influenced a lot by piano players, banging straight eights on a piano, like Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, the Louisiana players, Fats Domino, and Professor Longhair. His favorite is Dr. John and James Booker, will tell you. If that's. But I want to tell you, finding that style of piano player is very difficult. And to find a guy that's also young and eager and willing to come out here and wear a goofy red bow tie and stuff like that, he's a really special young guy. We're loving having him around. Please welcome Matt Jordan on the piano.
What's up, Harrisburg? Thanks for having me.
That's about it. I think I've talked about everybody up here. stories. I'll try to keep it short, okay? Our first tour, we were already playing 275 shows a year up through the Midwest. But our first trip to California, we went out there, and it went great. And I'll talk a little bit about that later here in a minute, but we got out to California, it was going great. Well, a guy from Seattle had called us and said, well, dude, let me book you in Seattle as long as you're on the West Coast. So we said, okay. And anyway, long story short, the guy completely flaked out. So we drove all the way up to Seattle, and the guy wasn't even answering his phone. But we had his address, so we went to his apartment, and we knocked on his door, and some big redheaded guy answered the door. And he looked down at us and he said, no, he's not here. He skipped out owing all of us at least $1,000 of back rent. He pretty much owes everybody in Seattle money. If you know where he is, we'd like to know too. And we looked up at the guy and we said, can we stay here? And they did. They let us stay on their living room floor for 3 nights. And the guy was a bartender, so he was somewhat well connected, which reminds me, tip your bartenders, all right? They kind of make this scene happen. So anyway, that third night he comes in, he goes, okay, here's the deal. They can't pay you any money, but they're going to throw you guys up at the end of the night at a showcase in downtown Seattle on Saturday night. We're like, oh, okay, you know, great, that's good. We got something out of the deal. And I mean, it worked out great. They threw us up there. It was a packed house of sweaty grunge rockers. Remember grunge rock? And here we come with our little haircuts. But we won them over. It was a great show. I was smiling. They were smiling back at me. We were rocking. But then all of a sudden I looked up and nobody was smiling. All of a sudden everybody was looking at Jimbo. And they all had this look on their face like, what the hell's going on, man? I looked over there and one of his bass strings was broken and hanging all loosey-goosey off of his bass. And that happens, right? Well, I guess in the heat of battle, he decided to get it out of his way. He just decided to rip it off with his bare hand. And it just gashed his finger down to the bone. And he's over there still slapping, but there's blood. Blood going everywhere. Blood. I mean, it was already pooling on the floor by the time I even noticed. It was all over him, there were these girls right in front of him that had blood splatter all over their face. It kind of looked like it was like in time with his heartbeat, like psst, psst. I could never be a doctor because I saw that as like, but anyway, we were playing the song Psychobilly Freakout, and he's slapping and there's blood, and I'm thinking, man, you just heard it has breaks, and I'm thinking to myself, well, when we hit this next break, then we got to quit playing altogether, or Jimbo is going to bleed to death over here. So we hit the break, and the room went dead silent. And I went over there and said, man, are you okay? And he ignored me. And he picked up his bass and walked right by me, and he brought his bass up into this brightest light in the center of the stage. And he took his bass and he planted it like a flag on the North Pole. Then he held up his right hand that was glistening blood all the way to his elbow, dripping. Then he made a cross in blood on his face like this. I'm over there thinking, where's he going with this? I'll never forget it. He looked over at me and he just said, go. So I said, it's a psychobilly freakout. We kept playing the song and blood was going everywhere, and we really went over Seattle that night. And have you ever seen the band War? That's fake blood, but I digress. But anyway, what we found out later is right behind the Blood Splatter Girls were the two owners of the new important grunge rock label Sub Pop Records, and we got a record deal off that gig. Thanks a lot to Jimbo for what he's done for me in my career. Here we go with the Jimbo song. so great, I'm going to tell another story.